Hi everyone, my name is Marshall Condon and welcome to the very first episode of Finance is the New Black. Finance is the New Black is all about you sending through any finance questions you may have and us answering them. So we look forward to receiving your questions and we look forward to answering them. In this show, we're going to go through getting into the market versus lifestyle and the benefits of either or, but also getting into the market with no deposit. So let's get cracking. Cam, first question.
Okay, the first question is from Sam in Warrandyte, and his question is, as a 28-year-old, taking out a loan can compromise the lifestyle I lead. How can you quantify the benefit of buying a house and taking out a loan at my age?
Great question, Sam, and it's one we get a lot quite frequently, and look at it as well from my friends as well. Obviously, at a young age, you do want to do those things in terms of going out and seeing friends, going to nice cafes, traveling, all those sort of things. But eventually, you do need to work out what's going to be more important to you. Is it maintaining that lifestyle and continuing to do those things, or getting into property and hopefully getting a foot into the property ladder and getting some growth for a long-term benefit? I think it comes down to your personal objectives and what you really want out of the longer term and longer term picture. And if that's the case, it's probably important to sit down with someone and really understand that long-term view of where you want to be. Build a strategy, put that in place, and then obviously start the journey from there. Now, if that means that you still want to go out for a few years or for the next foreseeable future and then pick it up at a later stage, that's entirely up to you. It's neither not right nor wrong. But what we would suggest is when you are looking to do it, sit down and really understand what that end game looks like and work backwards from there. Put a plan in place, start budgeting, manage your costs associated towards your expenses and lifestyle expenses, and then work backwards from there. Put something in place, and then budget accordingly.
So, Marshall, does it mean that if you get a mortgage, you lose your lifestyle?
Certainly not. Look, so you can still have a mortgage and still maintain a lifestyle. It's about understanding what your budget is and what you can afford, or what you'd like to be able to afford, and then purchasing for something that will fit in that price bracket. So by getting in and having a mortgage doesn't mean you're going to be eating sayos and tuna for the rest of your life. You can still get in if it's something affordable and still budget for those things like getaways every couple of years. Budget for the new car that you might need if your current car is not working. It's more about understanding those things up front, putting them in the plan, and then working backwards from there. So it doesn't mean you're going to miss out. It just means that you need to look a bit longer term than probably the next 6 to 12 months, put them in the budget, and then go from there.
So, Marshall, there's I guess one of the issues as well is affordability, because at the moment real estate is expensive, and I guess that's where people think that it's going to compromise their lifestyle. So there's lots of ways of getting into property. For younger, more lifestyle focused people, what's a way where you can do both?
Yeah, so great question. So look, there is a way, and they call it rent vesting. Whereas you rent where you want to live and you buy where you can afford. So that might mean you still rent in the suburb that you want to live in and get the lifestyle benefits you want, but you buy something in a suburb that may be in your price bracket in terms of a deposit and how much you want to pay per month. That way you do get both, because you obviously still maintain a lifestyle, but you're getting in the property market. You're getting obviously a return on that property, and so long as you are choosing that asset properly in terms of capital growth potential and doing your research, arguably you can have both and still be in a similar position than if you just bought in and out suburb and lived in it yourself. Look, we've run the numbers internally in terms of the difference between rent vesting and purchasing. In the wash, they don't really differentiate too much over 30 years. So it's another way of getting in, but still maintaining a lifestyle.
And I guess one of the other positives of rent vesting is that if you do hold on to it until retirement, you've got some passive income.
Exactly right. And look, as I mentioned before, it is working out where you want to be in that retirement phase and what type of assets and how many or how much do you need to be able to live that lifestyle you want when you retire. And getting your foot in the door with property earlier, the long-term growth prospects of property, as you can see if you do your own research over the last 30 years, has always been strong. That doesn't mean you don't have downturns. It means in general it always goes up. So if you still maintain the properties and keep them, at the end of the day, you've got a nice passive income that you can retire on.
Okay, great. Thanks, Marshall. Our second question is from Tom in Windsor, And his question is, are there any ways around paying large deposits up front? What are the positives and negatives of going down this path?
Yeah, certainly. Look, there is a way around having to pay a large deposit up front. A lot of people, just on that, a lot of people do think they need to come up with a 20% deposit. It's not necessarily the truth. You can still get into the market with a 10% or 15% deposit nowadays. Yes, it will mean that there are additional costs associated with borrowing, mainly what's called mortgage insurance. But when you look at the price of mortgage insurance and you divide it over the amount of years you've got the mortgage, again, it comes down to an opportunity cost. Yes, if I've got 10%, I can get in now. Yes, I've got slightly more fees, but I'm in the market. So hopefully the asset that I've selected will get me the growth to outweigh those costs with those fees.
I think we wrote a blog article on it, and I think we worked out that it was going to cost $63 a month.
Yeah.
But they got to retain, I think, $20,000-$30,000.
Yeah, exactly. And that's if you're in a position where you've got the 20%, then you've got the option of not having to put it all towards the property and having some cash available, so that you might be in a position to invest sooner into more assets, which hopefully you'll have some more growth. But for the cost of, in that scenario, $60 a month, getting into the property sooner rather than waiting and say another 12, 24 months or however long it takes to get the other 20% to avoid the mortgage insurance, you kind of need to weigh up in terms of what the potential growth prospects of the property is in the market versus waiting and getting in when you've got the full 20%. But going back to the original question in terms of other ways around having to have large deposits, there is what's called a family guarantee or a family pledge. And what that means is your parents guarantee the loan by putting their property up. And what that essentially means for yourself is that not only have you got the security of the property you're buying supporting the loan, you've also got mum and dad's property security to support your application. So you can essentially borrow 100% of the cost, 100% of the purchase price plus the costs, meaning you're borrowing roughly 105% of the value of the property. So in that scenario, you don't need a deposit. Obviously, the benefit of that is that you don't need to wait to save up to get in the market. You can potentially get in the market sooner and hopefully ride the capital growth of the property if you've selected the right asset. But the downside, and it is a big downside, is that if something happens to yourself, it's not just you on the hook anymore, it's you and mum and dad's property. So you want to make sure that if you are committing to that loan, then you can make sure you can afford those repayments, but also you can start progressively paying down the loan so that you can release mum and dad's property as soon as you can. So, this discussion needs to be had with mum and dad in terms of the risks associated with the guarantee, and they need to understand what can happen if things do go wrong. But there are ways to mitigate that. So you can, for example, split the loan up, so majority of the loan's against your purchase and only a smaller loan against mum and dad's property. And what that means is the amount that they guarantee is reduced by the amount that's actually secured by their property, but it also gives you a bit of a goal and a target to work towards to pay that down as quickly as you can so that you then own your property by itself with the equity you've built in as well. So in terms of the negatives, it's certainly a negative that obviously you're involving mum and dad, which maybe not ideal if something goes wrong, but it's also, given that you don't have the deposit, it's going to take you a lot longer to build equity in that property than if you would have saved the deposit yourself and then got in the other way. So again, it's an opportunity cost. Yep, you can get in now with no deposit. Hopefully, if there's been growth over those few years, you get that growth. But obviously the risk is that you are involving mum and dad and something happens, they're also on the hook as well.
And with such an expensive loan size comparable to the property value, I guess asset selection would be important to make sure you get that capital growth.
Yeah, spot on. And look with all the information that we give to our clients, and if you are looking at property, you need to be doing your research on the property itself in terms of potential growth aspect. I know this might be your first home and it's somewhere you want to live and settle down, but it is still an investment decision. So you want to look at, when you're buying the asset, different types of factors that will go into potentially, hopefully, increasing the value of that property. So spend your time, understand the suburb, understand the demographics and the demand for properties in that suburb, and select a property that you know that's going to get good growth qualities going forward. Thanks very much for the question. Really appreciate it. Look, if you want to hear more about Neue Black, feel free to click the video at the top left. We've also got further videos coming. We look forward to answering your questions. We look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you. We look forward to receiving your questions, and you can post your questions either on our YouTube channel, our Facebook page, or you can private message us on Facebook. Send through your questions and we look forward to answering them.